It is a fact universally acknowledged that soldiers are remembered only in times of crisis and in times of war. For the families of soldiers who die in the line of duty, it is an especially lonely struggle, not just coming to terms with the emotional loss, but often coming to terms with the fact that nobody acknowledges the soldier's place in the manner that is befitting. Somebody who has gone through this struggle and is fighting very bravely herself is Subhashini Vasant. Her husband, Colonel Vasant, was of course killed battling terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir, receiving then one of the highest gallantry awards of the country for his valor. But today she is running from pillar to post, in fact has been for 7 years, just to get what is due to her and her family since her husband died. So Subhashini, pleasure to have you on the program. It's of course extremely distressing to hear that 7 years after Colonel Vasant was killed in Jammu and Kashmir, the government, the country has not been able to give you what was your due. Give our viewers a sense of how you've had to run from pillar to post, of how this has added perhaps to your sense of both anguish and anger.
Absolutely, Barka. It's that sense of humiliation which I have been trying to ward off and not deal with. That is what it took me 7 years to come to terms with the fact that unless I wake up and voice my concern and gather support from like-minded citizens of this nation, my grievances and many people like me, I know, are struggling with their own grievances and it will not be answered. So finally, I just took this step and kind of jumped into the deep sea without knowing where it's going to lead me. But I said, this is what I'm dealing with, and I'm going to be open and share my pain and my anguish with the nation.
You know, what you're talking about reminds me of something I saw in 1999 or in the aftermath of the Kargil war, when the father of Anuj Nair went through exactly what you're going through. He had to run literally from ministry to ministry to get the petrol pump that had been allotted to the families of Kargil martyrs, and that even got converted to into a movie called Dhoop. And that was then, and today in 2014, it's still the same struggle. What does this say about our attitude to soldiers?
I have no clue, Barka. It really hurts me because people like Vasant serve the nation in the strong belief that the government will take care of their families when they are gone, if something like that happens. And in fact, Vasant had mentioned that to me. He said, don't worry, in a service like that I am, you will be taken care of. And mind you, I'd like to remind people here that it is not the army that I'm talking about. The army has really been my extended support and they've held my hand through all of this. The central government has given me whatever they have promised. But it's the state government that has kind of just not taken any cognizance of Vasant's Ashoka Chakra. I don't even have a letter from them commemorating his sacrifice and his honor thereafter. And that's what really hurts me. It's this division in responsibility where the states are allowed to deal with the martyrs' families as they please. And there is no uniform policy there, and that's my bigger grouse.
Now, ma'am, the rules of the Karnataka government, when we check them, clearly say that there's a certain amount of land, a certain acreage of land that has to be given to families of slain soldiers. You've been battling for this for 7 years. You've seen both political parties, BJP and Congress and others, come and go. How do they explain this? Is it just red tape? What is the response you've got from them all these years?
See, the response is, why are you running after something like this? It's not easy. You know how difficult it is to find land nowadays, and all kinds of stories. And it does not matter. You're living a good life. Just carry on. Why do you want to trouble yourself with all this? I've heard many responses.
And yet, at any point in these 7 years, did you just sort of feel like you're giving up, that it just wasn't worth this energy, wasn't worth the fight?
I have given up many times and woken up many times, Barka. And this is one of the things that I have woken up again now. And this time, I'm going to see it to the end. This has happened many times over the last 6.5 years.
So you're saying neither have you got a letter commemorating the Ashoka Chakra, and nor have you got, of course, the gratuity and the land that has been due to your family since then?
Yes, from the state government. Let's be very specific. Because the central government gives a medal, gives a scroll, and gives a certain amount in the pension which comes every month. That is done. And then, see, my bigger point here is that I would like to bring to the notice of the central government. I'm sure they know it, but I'd like to humbly request them that they have to institute a single policy, a uniform policy across India where all the states will have a guideline as to how they have to treat their martyrs and their gallantry awardees. It has to be uniform. Now there is a lot of discrepancy from each state to each state.
I think that's such an important point you make, ma'am. And, you know, I remember once on an earlier show that you were on with me, you told us how when your husband died at his funeral, politicians all were lining up to pay lip service and they were jostling to get photographs taken for you. And how you felt that it was more a photo op for them,
Yes.
a political photo
Yes, I
op
do.
Than anything
Yes, I
else. So
do.
give our viewers a sense of what you felt in that moment.
It was really shocking. I was in the middle of the funeral and there was this MLA or MLC, I don't remember what their rank was, whatever they were, busy jostling behind me and getting the cameras guys in front of them and saying, come on, quickly take a shoot, quickly take a shot. And I was actually stoned. I had no clue what was going on around me. And later on, I realized that even my real life pain was actually just a photo op for them to have been there and like they had cared for me.
How do you explain this struggle to your children without taking away from their sense of optimism and hope about their lives?
I've actually, you know, kind of put my children out of this whole scenario, and I've tried to kind of shelter them and protect them from not having to experience all this pain. I'm sure they do in their own way, but I've always kind of kept a very positive outlook for them, and I've never made their life dependent on what comes from all of this or not. But this is more on the basis of a principle that I am kind of fighting, I must say. I hate to use that term, but yes, it is.
I know what you mean, and talk a little bit about, Subhashini, how the fact of the matter is that anyone who has either a husband in the military or a son is expected to be stoic, is expected to never show emotion. And, you know, you all have to, in a sense, go through this alone. But beyond the emotional loneliness and the army, of course, giving you a sense of community, there's also the other loneliness that comes with this kind of neglect or this kind of absence of respect.
Absolutely. See, the least the government can do, because we have our emotional and physical pain that we have to deal with after a trauma like this, the least the government can do is give us our entitlements without a fuss. Whatever it is, just follow the rule. I'm not asking for anything more, nor am I asking for anything less. There is a rule, just follow it, implement it, do it as soon as you can, and say, okay, now please deal with the rest of your trouble. That's all we expect from the government.
Has the whole experience left you completely cynical, or do you still believe that justice will prevail?
You know the diehard positive optimist that I am. I am doing this with the hope that yes, it will end well. And not just for myself, but many more others whom you are not able to talk to on your channel right now because you don't know them or they don't know you. I hope it will bring about a huge change where officials concerned will just do what they have to do for people like me.
Well, ma'am, more power to you, and I can assure you that all of us are firmly behind you, and it's a shame that you had to go through this at all to begin with.
Thank you, Barka. Thank you so much.
Well, that's it on the program this evening, the story of Subhashini Vasant and the shameful struggle that she's had to go through. From all of us here, thanks for watching. Good night.